Final presentation of the day is the closing keynote address to be given by Neal Cross. I hope Neal Cross is in the room from DBS. Yes, there he is. He's waving, that's good. He's the Chief Innovation Officer of DBS Bank, Singapore's biggest bank. Neal has more than 20 years' experience in technology, innovation and financial services. Before joining DBS, he worked at MasterCard, where he was Vice President of MasterCard Labs. We've heard a lot about labs and incubators and accelerators. Well, that's what he was doing at MasterCard. And before that, he was at Microsoft, so Mr. Technology. Neal, you have, I think on the agenda, it says 30 minutes, but we'd like to wrap up at 5 to 2, so you've got about 20 minutes, maybe 25, and I'll start acting a bit agitated here if you're taking too long. Would you please welcome Neal Cross?
Thank you. Oh, I should have worn a suit. Sorry, I just feel so out of place.
Do you want to borrow this?
I walked in earlier and somebody thought I was part of the camera crew. But our CEO is pretty progressive. He doesn't like me to wear suits, even though I have 25. What we're going to talk about today, it's been great listening to the presentations about Barclays and ING. We're fairly similar, but we have a slightly different model. So what we put our hands right inside the guts of the bank, and we're going to fundamentally reinvent every single part of the bank. Finance, HR, product, tech, the whole lot, yeah? Our innovation group. Do you know how many, I've been there 18 months now, took it from 3 people to 30. Do you know how many things we've invented? 0. We don't invent a single thing. That's not our job, yeah? We're very lucky at DBS because we've got like a Goldilocks-sized bank. It's big enough that we've got a lot of clout, a lot of customers, a lot of market access, some great products, but it's small enough that we can actually reinvent the thing. It's only 22,000 staff, turnover about 10 bill, profit of 4 bill, so highly profitable. And so what we've done is built these engines of innovation. So rather than the innovation group sitting outside the bank, we're right inside the thing, getting the business units to fundamentally reinvent themselves. We've got a great CEO, which is good, Piyush. He's one of his famous quotes is that Asian banking is a burning platform, and he absolutely gets it. He got it probably a bit earlier than most others. And you get a lot of bank CEOs, don't you, say, hey, we're a tech company now, or we're a digital, and they say this stuff and nothing ever happens, do they? Their stock price might go beep, but they don't actually go and implement that strategy. It's just kind of talk a lot of the ways. But Piyush, that's why I joined a bank. I never wanted to work at a bank. I've been around banks a long time, selling to banks. But I really want to be on board with that. And a lot of people say to me, in Asia, Neal, you guys out there, you just copy the West, don't you? That's what I get a lot. You just copy the West. I'm like, well, kind of, but we don't kind of copy the West's failure to be successful in financial services. I mean, look at what Alibaba did, yeah? They went from 0 to $100 billion in funds under management in 1 year. Yeah, Alipay, Ant Financial, is worth $50 billion, way beyond PayPal. They're banking in WeChat. The epicenter of financial services disruption is not London, it's not Silicon Valley, it's not New York, it's not Sydney, it's not Singapore, Shanghai. China is where it's happening, yeah? You've got the world's biggest banks, the world's biggest tech and e-commerce companies fighting over the world's biggest population with probably the world's greatest wealth growth. It's massive. So for those of you who haven't been up China, go have a look. It's getting pretty exciting. We know our industry's under threat, but what I don't think is people realize quite how serious it is, yeah? It's not just about the fintech guys. If my problem was just fintech, I'd sleep a lot better. But last year, fintech investment worldwide was the VC investment, I think was about 15 billion US. This year will probably be about 25 billion US dollars. investment into fintech. That's not that much money. It's some, yeah? It's not even our revenue for the year, and we're not a huge bank. But they're gaining a lot of traction. The ones that worry me really are the Googles, the Amazon, the Facebook, the Alibaba, the Baidus. And these guys, they have some massive advantage, yeah? I noticed that actually Google, I think it was Google, Facebook, Apple, a petition in the US government to get access to digital financial services. And so if we look at worldwide, I've been trying to calculate this, if we look at worldwide financial services revenue, yeah, in a year of financial services revenue, maybe actually in 6 months, but let's say a year to be safe, a year's worth of revenue worldwide in financial services, I could buy for cash Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple. And so there's way more money in our industry than there is in theirs, yeah? How many more phones can they sell? How much more advertising can they sell? They're kind of reaching capacity, yeah? How many more books can they sell? But whoa, if they move into our industry, they can do very well. And guess what? They've all got 1 billion customers each. Apple have 850 million credit cards on file, and everyone loves their brand. And if you think the regulators are going to stop them, they're not, yeah? Regulators' number one job is to protect customers. Number two is to create a vibrant ecosystem of financial offerings. And so we've seen the first bit with Apple. But Apple are fine, aren't they? Because Apple, you know, we put Apple in the payments value chain. They're just going to sit there and stay there, aren't they? Apple's business model is not closed, is it? Oh, no, it is closed, isn't it? They like to own everything. So they own the hardware, they own the operating system, they own the iTunes. They tend to own every single piece of an ecosystem. That's their business model, yeah? So watch that space. We're starting to see iPads being used to take payments. Apple announced they're going to do peer-to-peer payments. Google's business model, selling people's lives. That's their model, data. 95% of the revenue comes from data. They're not a tech company. They're not an innovation company. They're certainly not a driverless car company. They're an advertising company. So everything they do is about information. So if they come into our industry, that would be a real concern. The way they approach information is fundamentally different from us. Facebook again. Facebook can connect billions of people together. Well, they have opportunity to turn everyone into a bank. That could be the world's biggest peer-to-peer lending platform, couldn't it? And so these players have huge opportunity to enter our industry, and they're starting to acquire fintechs. And so fintechs, we can look at them and go, hey, a fintech, it's reached a valuation of $1 billion, it's causing us some pain in the market. Let's just go acquire them. That'll stop it, just acquire them. We've got $1 billion. But guess what? If one of those guys, the big guys, acquire them, a bit stuck, aren't we, then? Have a look at TransferWise in the UK. They're doing amazing work in payments, a fifth to a tenth of the cost of banks, and they're taking huge market share. And so years ago, I used to be able to guess or predict what's going to happen in the future of banking. I could look at branches, I could think about Brett King, branches are going to die or they're going to turn into sales center. We can talk about, digital and the way that's going. I have no idea what's going to happen anymore. I mean, I don't. Yeah, in 10 years' time, I have no idea. I do know there'll be less banks. I do know there'll be a lot more less traditional players in there, and we'll see the Googles, the Amazons, and Alibabas. I do know that there'll probably be less money in banking, but on the plus side, there'll be a lot less cost in banking. I do know there'll be a lot less friction as well, but that's pretty much it. So my job as a Chief Innovation Officer is to try and rewire the bank as we're going along. So one of the things that, one of the industries we looked at was e-commerce. And e-commerce are amazing at understanding data. And do you know, the only way you understand a customer in digital banking is through data. You have nothing else. You cannot build a relationship with them in any other way. You don't talk to them on a phone, they don't come in a branch, A lot of them won't have an RM. So the only way you can build a relationship is by understanding them through data and then analyzing it, re-representing it back to them, and trying to build a relationship by having highly contextual information dialogue with them. That's all you have, yeah? Just building a one-size-fits-all digital bank, good luck with that. You ain't going to build any relationships. And that's not how people like Amazon and Alibaba operate, yeah? It's not one-size-fits-all in their model. They're very good at data, so what we started was a joint research lab with a Singapore government agency called A-Star, where we spend a lot of time every year we take the 5 big challenges at the bank, and we put them through these data science guys, and they come up with a solution. Do you know now, we actually were the first bank ever to win a Singapore Engineers Institute Award because we could predict fraud, future predict fraud, where the fraud would happen, what type of fraud, and the amount. Because of the science. We can predict when an ATM will fail, which ATM, also which part of an ATM. So next Tuesday at 3 o'clock, the card reader on this ATM will fail. And we have quite a high probability, not like 90%, but way higher than benchmark on that. And benchmark on ATM failure is all about what you've all got today, is probably how much cash it paid out. The ATM paid out 100,000, hence it's going to fail soon. We're a bit more sophisticated. If you stack that up, you move into artificial intelligence, and we've got a big project with Watson. I'm sure a few of you have looked at this as well. And what we're seeing is that, people call this big data. It's not big data. It's tiny, insignificant drop of data is what we see today. Because most of the data in the world is caused by 2 things. One is human created. So I create a Word document, a PowerPoint, an Excel sheet. I upload something to Facebook. Or it's human initiated. So I tap my credit card and data gets generated. So it's all linked to humans and how many humans are on the planet connected to the internet. When we see a lot more machine-to-machine Internet of Things, data is going to exponentially grow, and actually big data can't cope. What you need is machine learning systems and cognitive computing to cope with that. Probably the most significant thing we did, and we underestimated the impact this would have on our organization, is how we start to operate like a startup. And we hear lots of banks talk about that they do design thinking, use lean startup and experiment. This year, we've run 1,000 experiments across the bank. The bank staff have run them. With the innovation group, we don't invent or do any of that. We get the bank to do it. They've engaged hundreds and hundreds of startups, 2,000 staff, so about 10% of the bank are trained in design thinking now. And when we run our accelerators, we run them ourselves, but what we do is we actually fill them full of bank staff. We've even got a program now called the Innovation Sabbatical, where bank staff leave the bank for 3 months and start their own fintech company. And we mentor them, we put them in a facility, we get them some engineering talent, and that closes in December. Now, if they fail, they come back to the bank and bring all the learnings. If they succeed, well, they could create the next unicorn. And so we're evolving that culture and creating that excitement and then giving the staff the tooling so they can succeed. And we wrapped all this up. We love to make things a bit fun. So what we did, we took the top 250 performers in the bank, we smashed them up with startups, we took the biggest problems out of the organization, and in 3 days, we got them to invent 50 new fintech companies. And here's a video on how we did that.
I want our people to wake up to the new way that mankind lives, to what digital means. And you can't do that in classrooms. You can't put people in front of a blackboard and teach them what digital is all about. The only way you can do it is through experiential learning. Metaphor Hackathon is so exciting because it allows us to check many things in one go. It's a tremendous opportunity for us to get our best and brightest and give them a tremendously different exposure exposure to the new digital world that is on us, which allows you to get startups, people who think differently, mix and match them with our people, and give them an opportunity to think in a different frame. It's just fantastic.
They were creative skills in the sense of what it was like to work in an intense, rapid innovation environment, to come up with solutions in a very short period of time that would spark inspiration in the business to do something around those solutions.
We have about 85 of our people who are the world involved in this, and 20 staff teams. There's about 150 people involved in this production, this event that's going on.
They're trying to do some immersion into some customers' problems, build something, and act and get something delivered within these 3 days. This is giving them a microcosm of the way they should be operating.
Because to the experiments that run, there is no way they don't fail. They have to fail in order to succeed. So I think people alone that's the biggest failure.
I would say the biggest thing is creative thinking and trying to incorporate elements of human-centered design. I think it's one thing to just kind of talk about it, but really kind of reading those principles and saying this is how you apply them to solve a problem. And I think it's stuff that they can take back and say, okay, we're not just going to solve it in traditional purposes. Let's really understand who is the end user of this product or solution and how we serve their need.
Critical point that I learned is to be thinking out of the box. Don't think about the positive first. There are a lot of possibilities. This is how I'm making myself better. It's going to change my work style, to change my attitude to my customers.
And actually the tools are actually quite simple and straightforward for them to be able to use to take back to the workplace. So the hackathon has many different outputs. Clearly the idea is something that's of real value, but really culture change is what's most important.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6. So by the end of today, we'll have done 50 teams, 50 solutions, built 50 apps across the board from hackathons.
That's why we're running hackathons, that's why we're having our mission of create joyful banking. It's to create a leadership environment where the whole organization is filled with leaders who have a common vision and purpose.
But perhaps in some ways the most important, to me, is this notion of trying to change the culture of the company, of trying to create the confidence in ourselves to take some risks, to experiment a bit, to try a few things which are different, to have fun while you're doing it. That's the kind of company we're trying to build. And the Megathon is a fantastic tool to be able to bring that culture to life.
There we go. I can't stop Piyush from turning up to get in the videos. So that's a training course. We've done that 4 times. We've created over 50 fintechs. 12 of those are going into production. Next year, we're going to ramp that up, and we'll probably put maybe 1,000 people through that, so about 5% of the bank. I've got a little bit of time.
You haven't actually.
Okay. I've had 3 minutes. Yeah, that's actually a good break. A couple of minutes? Okay, all right. A quick commentary on what we're seeing in the world of tech. This is the single most important tech trend you're going to see, Internet of Things. All these sensors are going to give us new ways to understand our customers, both in the corporate and in the consumer world. The fact that we can put sensors in every part of a corporate, every machine, every car, every office, and understand exactly how they're operating, how they're distributing, how they're manufacturing, will enable us to be way more sophisticated in analyzing their risk and lending to them in the corporate world. See lots of stuff there. Blockchain, wow, a little bit hyped at the moment, but will have a tremendous impact on our business. But it did seem a bit weird. It started as this Bitcoin that was going to destroy banks, kind of shrunk down to blockchain that was going to reinvent banks, and has kind of ended up at the moment in a place where, hey, it's good for trade finance. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not going to be successful. It just needs a bit of time and for people to stop hyping the hell out of the thing. It's not a technology. It's a design pattern for me. That is it. It's just a way that you design a piece of technology and also a business. Finally, digital intelligence. This is going to be huge, personally. Everyone can have their own personal banker. And that's the point we're moving to. These intelligences will get to the point we can just chat to them. Robo-advisors are the dumbest things I've seen, yeah? Why do they call them robo-advisors? You just upload like your finance and it kind of recommends some product. What I want is just to chat to an artificial advisor, like a real advisor. So when we get the convergence of robo-advisors and artificial systems, well, that's going to be a whole different world, yeah. Then we'll start to see that move in almost up into, I wouldn't say private banking, but certainly in high net worth. So in summary, be afraid, but, you know, be ambitious, be quick, be agile, because it's changing. Act like an e-commerce company. Be very, very serious about data. Secondly, get the agility of your startup. Move quick, break things, experiment, try stuff. Create the culture of a tech company. Think about building platforms and working with ecosystems, but still deliver securely and at scale like a bank. So thank you. I think I'm on time. Cheers.
Very entertaining, and innovative, and informative. That is all we have time for. I think you'll all agree it's been a fascinating and thought-provoking day. That really was interesting about how they send away bankers on sabbaticals, come back in 3 months' time and invent a fintech company, and if you're a failure, go and work in a bank with the rest of the failures. There's a sort of double-edged sword to that, that comment. But no, it's a really good idea. I'd like to just finish by saying that a thing that stands out in my mind, there's 3 things. The chairman of the UBF said at the outset, don't take customer trust for granted. Give people the services they want, and innovation is needed to provide those services. That was very appropriate. The central bank governor talked about challenges and priorities. Challenges included oil price decline, tightening of government fiscal policies, possible increase in interest rates. Priorities, provide more finance for SMEs, diversify lending away from oil and gas, and innovation. In particular, more innovation can lead to better digital banking, and digital banking is a way of helping the financially excluded. And Scott Bales, he went through about 8 or 9 or 10 drivers of innovation. But the one that sticks out in my mind, well, there are 2 actually. Customer first, put the customer first. That's a very old principle of any sort of commercial organization. Put the customer first. It was probably invented by an American in the 50s. Customer empathy. So to be innovative, you don't actually have to keep reinventing the wheel. You can actually go back to basic principles like customer empathy, putting the customer first. However, the likes of Facebook, Apple, Google, they've taken the customer experience, putting the customer first, to a whole new level, and they're applying that to financial services. So that is something that the banking industry needs to take on board. Well, the formal part of the day may be over, but do please join us for networking lunch just next door. It's a standing buffet lunch, which works better for networking. You can circulate. However, there are a few tables for those who prefer to sit. So I would like to thank everybody, thank you, the audience, for listening so attentively and asking some questions from time to time. To thank the UAE Banks Federation, our partners today, for helping make this event possible. And also the sponsors named up on here on the screen. Thank you very much for taking part and sponsoring us. And of course, to thank the speakers and the panelists. So would you please join me in a final round of applause for all those people who've been up here on stage today. And see you in the lunch break.